Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ours is a common mission to look without fear or despair at the challenges ahead in this crucial decade, and to believe that we humans have the ingenuity to make the seemingly impossible possible, but only if we put our collective minds to it. For many of you, world leaders and governments in this room, that means demonstrating leadership and persuading your electorate how much this matters.
The palace tried to keep this quiet, but the truth is finally out. When Prince William approved the shocking title change for Duchess Sophie's children, insiders couldn't believe what they were hearing. Royal staff were left stunned. Family members whispered in disbelief. This wasn't just about titles. It was about power, legacy, and a secret plan that changes everything.
Well, he's left a giant-sized hole in our lives. I think unfortunately, the pandemic has slightly slewed things, in as much as it's hard to spend as much time with the Queen than we would like to. We've been trying to, but of course it's still not that easy. And of course, the normal way of things isn't normal yet.
What William did next will shake the monarchy to its core. The decision that nobody saw coming has just rewritten royal history forever. You won't believe what happens next. The British royal family operates within a framework of tradition that spans centuries, where titles aren't simply names, but carry significant weight in terms of duty, public perception, and historical continuity. Recent developments involving Prince William and the children of the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh have drawn considerable attention, raising questions about the future direction of the monarchy and how the institution plans to adapt while maintaining its established customs. Lady Louise Windsor and her younger brother James, Earl of Wessex, have lived most of their lives away from the intense public scrutiny that typically surrounds members of the royal family. This relative privacy was a deliberate choice made by their parents, Prince Edward and Sophie, who wanted their children to experience as normal an upbringing as possible. When Lady Louise was born in 2003, followed by James in 2007, they were technically entitled to be styled as Prince and Princess under the letters patent issued by King George V in 1917. These rules, which still govern much of the royal titling system, would have allowed Louise to be known as Princess Louise of Wessex and James as Prince James of Wessex. However, Edward and Sophie made the decision to decline those titles for their children. Instead, they chose to raise them as the son and daughter of an earl, believing this would give them greater freedom to develop their own identities without the constant pressure and expectations that come with being a prince or princess. This choice was widely regarded as progressive and reflected a more modern approach to royal parenting. Both children attended ordinary schools, made few public appearances, and were largely shielded from the media attention that had defined the childhoods of Prince William and Prince Harry. For nearly 2 decades, this arrangement worked well. Lady Louise and James grew up with a degree of normalcy rare for people in their position. They participated in regular activities, pursued their own interests, and were able to navigate their teenage years without being constantly photographed or analyzed by the press. Many observers praised Edward and Sophie for this approach, seeing it as evidence of their down-to-earth nature and their desire to prioritize their children's well-being over royal protocol. The situation has now shifted. Prince William, in his role as Prince of Wales and heir to the throne, has reportedly approved changes that bring Lady Louise and James closer to formal recognition of their royal status. This doesn't mean their titles are changing overnight, or that they will suddenly be called Prince and Princess, but it does represent a significant adjustment in how they are positioned within the royal family structure. The decision signals that the period of remaining in the background may be coming to an end for both young people. This development needs to be understood within the broader context of the monarchy's current situation. The working royal family has become considerably smaller in recent years. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back from their royal duties in 2020 and now live in the United States. Prince Andrew was removed from public duties following controversy surrounding his associations and legal issues. These departures have left fewer people available to carry out the hundreds of engagements, visits, and ceremonial duties that the monarchy undertakes each year. Prince William is acutely aware of this challenge. As someone who will one day be king, he is thinking strategically about how to maintain the institution's relevance and effectiveness, while also ensuring it appears modern and in touch with contemporary British society. The concept of a streamlined monarchy has been discussed for years, with King Charles himself having long advocated for a smaller core of working royals. However, there's a balance to be struck. If the family becomes too small, it risks appearing disconnected or unable to fulfill its role as a national institution that maintains visibility across the country. By bringing Lady Louise and James more formally into the royal framework, William is essentially broadening the base of support for the monarchy's public work. These aren't random additions. They are young people who have been raised with an understanding of royal life, who have connections to the family's history, and who have already demonstrated an ability to handle public moments with appropriate dignity. Their parents, Edward and Sophie, have built solid reputations as reliable, scandal-free working royals who fulfill their duties without seeking attention or causing problems. The timing of this decision is also significant. It comes at a moment when the monarchy is transitioning between generations. Queen Elizabeth II's death in 2022 marked the end of an era, and King Charles is now establishing his own approach to leadership. Prince William, meanwhile, is preparing for his eventual role as king, and part of that preparation involves thinking carefully about who will stand alongside him when that time comes. His own children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, are still very young. Lady Louise and James, being older, represent a bridge between generations. There's also a practical element to consider. Royal duties require maturity, training, and a willingness to commit significant time and energy to public service. Lady Louise is now in her early 20s and has been pursuing her education at the University of St. Andrews. James is in his mid-teens and continues his schooling. Both are reaching ages where decisions about their future paths need to be made. By signaling his support for their more formal recognition within the royal structure, William is effectively opening a door for them to choose a path of service if they wish to take it. This decision reflects William's relationship with his uncle and aunt as well. By approving this adjustment, he demonstrates respect for the work that Edward and Sophie have done over the years. The couple has maintained a steady presence, supporting the monarchy through various challenges, without becoming sources of controversy themselves. Sophie, in particular, developed a close relationship with Queen Elizabeth II and was often described as one of the monarch's most trusted family members. That loyalty and dedication has clearly not gone unnoticed. The move also sends a message about continuity. While the monarchy must evolve and adapt to changing times, it also needs to maintain connections to its history and traditions. Lady Louise and James carry forward the legacy of their grandfather, Prince Philip, who held the Duke of Edinburgh title for more than 70 years. Their father now holds that same title, and by bringing his children forward, William is ensuring that this particular branch of the family remains visible and active, rather than fading into the background. It's worth noting that this isn't about forcing anyone into roles they don't want. Both Lady Louise and James will ultimately make their own choices about how involved they wish to be in royal life. What William's approval does is create the framework and opportunity for them to step forward if they choose to do so. It removes barriers and acknowledges their place within the family structure in a way that their previous styling as simply the children of an earl did not fully capture. The British public's response to these developments has been mixed, as is often the case with royal matters. Some people appreciate seeing younger members of the family being prepared for greater responsibility, viewing it as sensible planning for the institution's future. Others question whether the monarchy needs to expand at all, or whether resources should be focused on an even smaller core group. These debates are part of the ongoing conversation about what role the monarchy should play in modern Britain. What remains clear is that Prince William is actively shaping the future of the institution, rather than simply inheriting a fixed system. His approval regarding Lady Louise and James represents forward thinking and strategic planning. It shows an awareness that the monarchy's survival depends not just on tradition, but on having capable people willing to serve and connect with the public across generations. The title of Duke of Edinburgh carries a unique weight within the British royal family, not simply because of its historical significance, but because of the man who shaped it into something deeply influential over more than 7 decades. Prince Philip, who married Princess Elizabeth in 1947 and became her consort when she ascended to the throne in 1952, wore this title throughout his adult life. He transformed it from a ceremonial designation into a role that reflected his own personality, his commitment to service, and his sometimes unconventional approach to royal duties. Philip was known for his direct manner of speaking, his interest in science and technology, and his ability to modernize aspects of the royal household that had remained unchanged for generations. He founded the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme in 1956, which has since helped millions of young people develop skills, confidence, and a sense of achievement through challenging outdoor activities and community service. This initiative became one of his most enduring legacies, spreading to countries around the world and continuing to operate decades after its creation. The Duke of Edinburgh title, through Philip's work, became associated with youth development, environmental conservation, and a forward-thinking approach to public service. When Prince Philip died in April 2021 at the age of 99, the question of what would happen to his title became a matter of both protocol and sentiment. According to the rules governing such matters, the dukedom passed to his eldest son, who at that time was Prince Charles. However, this was always understood to be a temporary arrangement. Queen Elizabeth II had made it known years earlier that she intended for the title to eventually go to her youngest son, Prince Edward. This promise reflected both the Queen's wishes and an acknowledgement of Edward's steady dedication to royal duties over the years. The transfer took place in March 2023, several months after Queen Elizabeth II's death and following the accession of King Charles III. The new king bestowed the Duke of Edinburgh title upon his younger brother, fulfilling their mother's long-standing intention. For Edward, this was a significant moment. He had spent decades working quietly in support of the monarchy, taking on hundreds of engagements each year without attracting the kind of attention or controversy that sometimes surrounded other family members. The title represented recognition of that service and tied him directly to his father's legacy. Edward's wife, Sophie, became the Duchess of Edinburgh, a title that carried its own historical resonance. She had built her own reputation as a hardworking member of the royal family, known for her warmth, her ability to connect with people during official visits, and her loyalty to the institution. Together, Edward and Sophie had maintained one of the most stable and scandal-free profiles among senior royals, focusing on their charitable work and public duties, rather than seeking media attention. This elevation had immediate implications for their children. James, who had previously been styled as Viscount Severn, took on the courtesy title of Earl of Wessex. This change reflected his father's new position and signaled a shift in how the family was positioned within the broader royal structure. The title of Earl of Wessex, which Edward had held before becoming Duke of Edinburgh, now belonged to James as a courtesy designation that he would hold until his father's death, at which point he would be expected to inherit the dukedom itself. For Lady Louise, the change was less about titles and more about visibility. As the daughter of a duke rather than simply the daughter of an earl, her position within the royal hierarchy became more prominent. While she retained her existing styling, the elevation of her father's status inevitably raised her profile and brought greater attention to her activities and choices. This shift occurred at a crucial time in her life, as she was entering adulthood and beginning to make decisions about her education and future path. The Duke of Edinburgh title has never been merely ceremonial. From the beginning, it carried expectations of active work and genuine commitment to public service. Prince Philip set that standard through his decades of engagements, his patronage of numerous organizations, and his willingness to tackle difficult or controversial subjects when he believed it was necessary. Edward has approached the role with similar dedication, though in his own style. he and Sophie have expanded their work in areas including supporting young people, promoting the arts, and championing causes related to disability awareness and inclusion. Prince William's support for the adjustment of titles for James and Louise should be understood within this context. By approving these changes, William is not simply following protocol or making administrative adjustments. He is actively connecting the Duke of Edinburgh legacy to the monarchy's future planning. This branch of the family, which includes two young people who are still developing their own identities and making choices about their futures, is being positioned as an integral part of the institution, rather than as a peripheral element. The decision also reflects the practical realities facing the royal family. With fewer working royals available to fulfill the demanding schedule of public engagements, every capable and willing family member becomes more valuable to the overall functioning of the institution. Edward and Sophie have proven themselves reliable and effective in their roles. Their children, if they choose to take on similar responsibilities, would bring fresh energy and help ensure continuity across generations. There is also a symbolic dimension to consider. The Duke of Edinburgh title connects directly to Queen Elizabeth II's reign through her husband, who was her constant companion and support for more than 70 years. By ensuring that this title remains active and relevant through Edward's tenure, and by bringing Edward's children into clearer recognition, William is maintaining a living link to his grandmother's era while also building toward the future. This balance between honoring the past and preparing for what comes next is a delicate but essential part of managing the monarchy's evolution. The elevation of Edward to Duke of Edinburgh also addressed questions about the long-term structure of the royal family. For years, there had been discussions about which titles would be maintained and which might eventually fade away. Some observers had speculated that the monarchy might become increasingly focused on the direct line of succession, with other branches gradually becoming less prominent. By reviving the Duke of Edinburgh title and ensuring it has an active role, King Charles and Prince William have signaled that they value maintaining multiple working branches of the family, at least for now. This approach makes sense when considering the geographical and social reach required of the modern monarchy. Royal family members are expected to visit different regions of the United Kingdom, to represent the crown at various events and occasions, and to maintain patronages with hundreds of charitable organizations. A monarchy that consists only of the sovereign and the immediate heir would struggle to fulfill all these expectations. By keeping the Edinburgh household active and visible, the institution retains greater capacity to maintain its presence across the country. Edward has taken on his role with characteristic humility. He has not sought to dramatically reshape the Duke of Edinburgh title or to make bold pronouncements about his intentions. Instead, he has continued the steady work he and Sophie have been doing for years, now with the added recognition that comes with his father's former title. This consistency is itself valuable, providing stability during a period of significant change for the monarchy. The impact on James and Louise extends beyond titles and formal recognition. They are growing up in a family that is being positioned as an essential part of the royal structure for decades to come. Their grandfather Philip left behind a model of service that emphasized action over ceremony, innovation over tradition for its own sake, and a willingness to speak candidly when the situation called for it. Their father, Edward, has demonstrated a different but equally valuable approach, characterized by quiet dedication and a preference for substance over publicity. As James and Louise come of age, they will have the opportunity to draw on both these examples while developing their own approaches to public life. Prince William's approval of their enhanced recognition suggests he sees them as potential assets to the monarchy's future. Young people who understand the institution from the inside and who have been raised with an awareness of both its privileges and its responsibilities. The Duke of Edinburgh household now occupies a unique position within the royal family. It is neither the direct line of succession nor a distant branch with minimal involvement. Instead, it represents a middle ground, a working part of the institution that can provide support and capacity while also maintaining its own identity and areas of focus. How this role develops over the coming years will depend partly on the choices made by James and Louise as they mature, and partly on the broader direction that Prince William and King Charles establish for the monarchy as a whole. James Alexander Philip Theo Mountbatten Windsor entered the world on December 17, 2007, at Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey. Unlike some of his cousins who were born in the prestigious Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital in London, where royal births traditionally attracted crowds of photographers and well-wishers, James arrived in a more low-key setting. This choice by his parents set the tone for how they intended to raise both their children, prioritizing privacy and normalcy over spectacle and public attention. From his earliest years, James lived a life that was deliberately kept separate from the constant media scrutiny that typically surrounds royal children. His family home at Bagshot Park in Surrey provided a secure environment where he could grow up away from cameras and public observation. The estate offered space for outdoor activities, family time, and the kind of childhood experiences that would be impossible in more exposed royal residences. His parents made conscious decisions to protect him from the pressures that had affected other members of the family, particularly Prince William and Prince Harry, who had grown up under relentless media attention. Education played a central role in shaping James's early life. He attended Eagle House School in Berkshire, a preparatory school with a strong reputation for academic achievement and character development. The school's environment allowed him to interact with other children his age without his royal connections dominating every interaction. Teachers and staff described him as a thoughtful and studious young person who mixed well with his peers. This educational setting gave him the opportunity to develop his own interests and personality without the weight of royal expectations constantly pressing on him. Family traditions also shaped his upbringing. James spent considerable time with his late grandfather, Prince Philip, particularly during family gatherings at Balmoral in Scotland. These visits included activities like carriage driving, a sport that Philip had taken up later in life and became passionate about. The bond between grandfather and grandson was evident to those who observed them together, and these experiences connected James to both his family history and to the rural traditions that have long been part of royal life. For most of his childhood and early teenage years, James remained largely invisible to the public. He occasionally appeared at major family events, but these moments were rare and carefully managed. His parents succeeded in their goal of giving him a childhood that resembled, as much as possible, that of any other young person from a privileged background. However, this began to shift as he grew older, and as circumstances within the royal family changed. One of the most significant public moments in James's young life came in September 2022, during the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. The death of his grandmother marked a historic turning point for the nation and the royal family, and the funeral was watched by millions of people around the world. James, along with his sister Lady Louise, played a specific role in the proceedings. They helped lead two of the late Queen's beloved fell ponies, Emma and Carlton Lime Emma, as they followed the funeral cortege. This was a simple task, but it carried deep symbolic meaning. Dressed in formal attire and walking with composure that seemed beyond his years, James handled this responsibility with quiet dignity. The image of the young teenager participating in such a solemn state occasion resonated with many viewers. It offered the British public a glimpse of how the youngest members of the Windsor family might carry themselves in future years when called upon for official duties. The moment was understated rather than dramatic, yet it proved memorable precisely because of its simplicity and the visible respect James showed for the occasion. This appearance marked something of a turning point in how James was perceived. No longer just a child being shielded from public view, he was now being seen as a young person capable of handling significant moments with appropriate seriousness. The funeral demonstrated that when needed, he could step forward and fulfill a public role without appearing overwhelmed or uncomfortable. This matters because it suggests he has been prepared, even if quietly, for the possibility of taking on greater responsibilities as he matures. Prince William's approval of adjustments to how James and his sister are recognized within the royal structure adds weight to this trajectory. What once seemed like a path toward private life, perhaps pursuing a career outside the royal sphere, now appears to be shifting. James is being positioned, whether explicitly or implicitly, as someone who may have a role to play in supporting the monarchy's work in the years ahead. This doesn't mean his entire future is predetermined, but it does mean that options are being kept open, and that he is being seen as part of the institution's longer-term planning. The question of what role James might eventually play remains open. He is still young, still completing his education, and still developing his own interests and priorities. Unlike previous generations where royal duties were simply expected, and alternative paths were rarely considered, today's young royals have more freedom to make choices about their futures. Prince William himself has spoken about wanting his own children to have agency in deciding how involved they wish to be in royal life. The same principle would presumably apply to his younger cousins. However, the context in which James's coming of age is different from what his parents experienced. The working royal family has shrunk considerably, and there is a genuine need for capable people willing to undertake the demanding schedule of engagements, visits, and ceremonial duties that the monarchy requires. If James chooses to step into a more active role, he would be doing so at a time when such contributions are genuinely valued and needed, rather than being redundant or purely ceremonial. His sister, Lady Louise, has followed a path that has drawn considerable interest in comparison to other family members. Born in 2003, she is several years older than James and has already begun making choices about her adult life. One of the most discussed decisions she made was to attend the University of St. Andrews in Scotland for her higher education. This is the same university where Prince William met Catherine Middleton in the early 2000s, and the connection was immediately noticed by media observers and royal watchers. The choice to attend St. Andrews carries multiple layers of meaning. It is a prestigious institution with a strong academic reputation, particularly in areas like art history and international relations. It also has deep connections to the royal family beyond William and Catherine's relationship, having educated various members of the aristocracy and international students over its long history. For Louise, the decision allowed her to pursue her studies in an environment that, while certainly aware of her background, was also accustomed to having notable students and could offer a degree of normalcy. Unlike Prince William's experience at St. Andrews, which was marked by intense media interest and constant photography, Louise has been able to study with relatively little intrusion. This reflects both changing media practices and the fact that as the daughter of the Duke of Edinburgh rather than the direct heir, she attracts less constant attention. She has been able to settle into university life, make friends, and focus on her academic work without becoming a constant subject of tabloid coverage. Beyond her academic pursuits, Louise has maintained strong connections to family traditions, particularly those associated with her late grandfather. She developed a passion for carriage driving, a sport that Prince Philip took up after retiring from polo, and became deeply committed to it over his later years. Carriage driving requires significant skill, patience, and physical coordination. It involves controlling a team of horses or ponies while navigating courses and obstacles, often at considerable speed. Louise has competed in carriage driving events, including at the Royal Windsor Horse Show, where she has been seen handling the reins with confidence and capability. This is not merely a hobby or a token gesture toward family tradition. She has demonstrated genuine skill and dedication to the sport, training regularly and taking it seriously as an athletic pursuit. By continuing this tradition, she keeps alive a connection to Prince Philip's legacy, while also establishing her own identity within an activity she clearly enjoys. In another move that surprised some observers, Louise joined the University Officers Training Corps while at St. Andrews. This program allows university students to receive military-style training and participate in exercises while completing their degrees. It represents a significant commitment of time and energy, involving early morning training sessions, weekend exercises, and a level of physical and mental challenge that goes well beyond typical student activities. For a member of the royal family, participation in the Officers Training Corps carries particular significance. It demonstrates a willingness to engage in serious preparation for potential service, whether military or otherwise. It shows discipline, commitment, and a desire to stand alongside others rather than relying solely on privilege or family connections. At a time when the monarchy faces questions about its relevance and its connection to ordinary people's lives, Louise's choice to undertake demanding training speaks to a different kind of royal identity, one based on capability and effort rather than simply birthright. Prince William's approval of enhanced recognition for Louise represents an important shift. While her parents initially preferred to keep her styled as the daughter of an earl, allowing her to grow up with less formal pressure, the current adjustment opens possibilities for her to take on more defined royal duties if she chooses. This doesn't mean she is being forced into a predetermined role, but rather that the framework is being established for her to step forward, should she decide that path makes sense for her. There has been speculation that Louise could eventually receive a Duchess-level title, which would formalize her position and give her a clearer place within the royal hierarchy. Such a move would reflect both her growing maturity and the monarchy's need for capable younger members who can share the workload of public engagements. Whether this happens will depend on multiple factors, including Louise's own wishes, the broader direction of the monarchy under King Charles and eventually King William, and the practical needs of the institution as it continues to evolve. What is clear is that both James and Louise are being prepared, whether actively or through circumstance, for potentially more visible roles than their parents originally envisioned. Their upbringing balanced privacy with awareness of their heritage. Their education has emphasized both academic achievement and practical skills. Their early public appearances have shown they can handle significant occasions with appropriate composure. Prince William's support for their enhanced recognition suggests he sees value in having them as part of the monarchy's future, contributing their time and energy to an institution that requires constant renewal across generations. Sophie Rhys-Jones came from a world entirely different from the one she would eventually inhabit. Before her marriage to Prince Edward in 1999, she worked in public relations, building a professional career in London's competitive business environment. She understood media dynamics, corporate communications, and the challenges of managing public perception. This background would prove valuable in unexpected ways once she became part of the royal family, though the transition from working professional to working royal was neither simple nor immediate. The early years of her marriage brought challenges that tested her ability to navigate the complex expectations of royal life. Sophie and Edward initially tried to maintain their professional careers while also fulfilling royal duties, an arrangement that proved difficult and eventually unsustainable. Eventually, they made the decision to step back from their commercial activities and commit fully to royal duties, a choice that marked a turning point in how they were perceived both within the family and by the public. What distinguished Sophie's journey was the relationship she developed with Queen Elizabeth II. While some family members who married into the Windsors struggled to find their footing or to connect personally with the monarch, Sophie managed to build something genuinely close. This wasn't merely a professional working relationship or a formal family connection. Those who observed them together, including palace staff and family members, noted a warmth and ease in their interactions that went beyond duty or protocol. Sophie and Edward, often with their children, spent considerable time at Windsor Castle. These weren't just occasional visits for official events, but regular informal gatherings where they would share meals, go for walks, and spend time together as family. The Queen, who was known for her love of the countryside and her preference for simple, unpretentious company, seemed to genuinely enjoy Sophie's presence. Reports from those close to the family suggested that the monarch valued Sophie's straightforward manner, her lack of pretension, and her genuine commitment to serving the institution rather than seeking personal publicity. This closeness went beyond personal affection. The Queen came to rely on Sophie in ways that extended to trusting her with increasingly important responsibilities. Sophie took on patronages and official duties with a seriousness that impressed those who worked with her. She traveled extensively on behalf of the Crown, representing the monarchy at events both within the United Kingdom and internationally. Her work focused particularly on areas including visual impairment, women's rights, and support for military families. She approached these commitments with genuine engagement, rather than treating them as mere ceremonial obligations. Palace staff, speaking over the years to various journalists and biographers, often described Sophie as having become like a second daughter to the Queen. This characterization reflected not just the time they spent together, but the evident trust and mutual respect in their relationship. The Queen had a complicated relationship with some of her children and their spouses over the years, marked by periods of tension or disappointment. With Sophie, there appeared to be none of that strain. Sophie's family life reinforced this positive image. She and Edward raised Lady Louise and James with a careful balance of royal awareness and normal childhood experiences. The children spent significant time with their grandmother, joining her for weekends at Windsor, and participating in family traditions at Balmoral during summer holidays. They learned about the countryside pursuits the Queen loved, from horse riding to simply enjoying the outdoor environment of the Scottish estate. The recent decision by Prince William to approve adjustments in recognition for Louise and James reflects directly on Sophie's position within the family. This isn't merely about the young people themselves. It represents an acknowledgement of Sophie's own journey, her loyalty, and the respect she earned over more than 2 decades of service. By bringing her children into clearer recognition within the royal framework, William is essentially confirming that Sophie's branch of the family is central, rather than peripheral to the monarchy's future. Sophie is no longer viewed simply as Prince Edward's wife or as one of the Queen's daughters-in-law. She has established her own identity as a working royal, who contributes significantly to the institution's functioning. Her consistent public service, her scandal-free reputation, and the dignity with which she has carried herself have secured her position. When decisions are made about the monarchy's future structure and about which family members will carry the weight of public duties, Sophie is included in that core group without question. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 marked a profound shift not just for the nation, but for everyone within the royal family. The Queen had been a constant presence for 70 years, the longest-serving monarch in British history. For most people alive, she was the only sovereign they had ever known. Her death at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, surrounded by close family members, brought an immediate and irreversible change to the institution she had dedicated her entire adult life to leading. The transition of power happened swiftly. Prince Charles became King Charles III the moment his mother died, a transfer of sovereignty that occurs automatically without ceremony or delay. 2 days later, he was formally proclaimed king at St. James's Palace in London, with the traditional announcement declaring the end of one reign and the beginning of another. The ripple effects of this transition extended throughout the entire royal hierarchy. Prince William, who had been Duke of Cambridge, became Prince of Wales, the title traditionally held by the heir to the throne. His wife Catherine became Princess of Wales, a title last held by Diana, and one that carries both prestige and the weight of public expectation. For William, the change meant not just a new title, but a fundamental shift in his role and responsibilities. For Prince Edward and his family, the transition also brought significant changes. Several months after becoming king, Charles fulfilled the promise his mother had made years earlier by bestowing the Duke of Edinburgh title upon his younger brother. This transfer, which took place in March 2023, elevated Edward's position and brought his family into sharper focus within the royal structure. Prince William's role in approving enhanced recognition for Lady Louise and James should be understood within this context of transition and reorganization. The death of Queen Elizabeth II forced the entire family to reassess their positions and their futures. For Louise and James, who had enjoyed relative privacy throughout their grandmother's lifetime, the new era brought questions about what role they might play. William's decision to bring them into clearer recognition suggests he sees them as part of the solution to the monarchy's evolving needs, rather than as peripheral figures who can remain indefinitely in the background.